So a police officer was ambushed and shot in his neck on the 4th of July at a Dallas-Fort Worth area ICE facility. And of course, it was the usual suspects. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about a police officer being ambushed and shot in his neck on the 4th of July at a Dallas-Fort Worth area ICE facility. And to be specific, this is a Prairie Land Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas, due south of Fort Worth. Now, the officer is okay, as well as he's going to be. He was treated and released. However, he did get hit in his neck. So clearly the objective was to take this man's life. So I hope he gets well soon. I hope he gets well mentally, because that's got to be a very difficult thing to deal with. I know you were an officer and that's part of your job, but you probably don't anticipate being set up by all these people. Now, let's take a look at these individuals. Like I said from the beginning, the usual suspects. You already kind of know what it is. You hear about political violence against people who are trying to enact law and order. You hear about political violence against those who are villainized by the media. The people engaging in the violence always look the exact same way. And you see their literature they had right there. You see what it says: organizing for attack, insurrectionary anarchy. So you already know what it is. Communists, socialists, crazy people. There's at least 10 of them who have been arrested so far, but I'm reading there could be number 11, maybe number 12 out there, but at least 10 have been arrested. And I hope they all get the ultimate. You want to set up and ambush an officer at a nice facility? This is clearly politically motivated. This has to be considered terrorism. And if it's not, then I don't really understand. Now, before I go any further, let's get to a news clip here. Of course, I will link to the clip in the box if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
10 people are facing charges for their roles in the shooting of an Alvarado police officer at an ICE detention center.
Investigators say it was a coordinated attack that ended when two people fired at police and unarmed corrections officers. Fox 4's John Anglin reports.
Though somewhat rare in the early stages of a federal investigation, authorities have shared booking photos of nearly a dozen suspects, images of weapons, tactical gear, and graffiti they say were part of a...
So you see what it says right here: Ice Pig, FU Pigs. So you already know what's going on. They are attacking ICE facilities. I guess they think they're doing the wrong thing. These are Nazis or whatever the case may be. Emboldened by the mainstream media, because that's what they say all the time, and also the politicians. So when you're talking about who's to blame, I blame those that did it first and foremost, but I also blame the environment in which they were inspired to do this. I blame the mainstream media. I blame the politicos. I blame other mouth breathers in the street who have this same ideology.
Violent planned ambush at the ICE detention facility in Alvarado.
Clearly, the allegation is very strong.
I spoke to criminologist Dr. Alex Del Carmen of Tarleton State University for his perspective on the case, which underscores an increase in violence against law enforcement officers in other cities and states, particularly surrounding immigration.
One possibility is that they are related, and that this is a national concerted effort, to go after first responders, which could always be. And they have not made that connection yet. The second possibility is that, in fact, this may not be related at all, and that these are simply copycats, that people are getting inspired to do this kind of harm on first responders because they're reading what's happening in other states.
In Alvarado.
Now, look, it could be organized from a central place, or it could be a copycat, but it doesn't really matter, because if it's organized, then they accomplish their goal of terror attacks. If it's not organized and they just are inspiring them, the same goal is still accomplished. So it doesn't really matter, in my humble opinion, whether it's organized from a central place and they're all taking orders from one person or one entity, or if it's just a bunch of different people trying to be copycats.
July 4th, around 10:30 at night, a disturbance outside the Prairieland ICE lockup appeared to lure unarmed correctional officers outside. Investigators say a positioned gunman then began firing. A responding Alvarado police officer was shot in the neck. He is expected to recover. According to the criminal charging document, in total, the assailant shot approximately 20 to 30 rounds at the correctional officers. The 10 suspects, the feds say, were dressed in military black, donned body armor. Some were even covered in mud. All face charges including attempted murder of an officer.
They got to go. They have to go. Now, people talking about, American citizens, they can't get sent out the country, but maybe an exception should be made for some people. I'm just floating it out there, although it might not really go anywhere.
There is also one charged co-conspirator. The arrest records reveal the individuals were from Fort Worth, Dallas, Kennedale, Waxahachie, and College Station.
They're all over the state. These are not people that were neighbors and decided to get together and cause harm. These were individuals that are basically across the state of Texas that have come together in some sort of an organized way.
Dr. Del Carmen, while insisting many things are clear surrounding the attack, believes an unanswered question is also crucial.
It would be interesting to know if there's a connection between the suspects and any of the inmates that are being held in that facility, as to whether or not they're trying to maybe plan somebody's quote-unquote rescue or escape from the facility, or if they were simply doing it as an easy target, a target that they knew how to get to.
So there you go. Again, that's out there in Alvarado, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The officer was shot in his neck, but he was treated at the hospital and released. So he will be fine physically, mentally. Might be a different story, because what do you do when you are ambushed by all these people? You're out there doing your job. You're not trying to harm anybody. Really, you're just doing your job. At a certain point, you got to have law and order in this country. And if you have individuals that feel like they don't want to follow the law, they want to do whatever they want to do, then they got to be held accountable. It doesn't matter if they're here legally, illegally. Listen, I'm an American citizen. If you're watching this and you're a citizen, if you do something wrong, if you violate the law, you're held accountable. Why would anyone else be any different? It doesn't make any sense. Now, like I said from the jump, these individuals, I'm thinking terror attack. That's what this was. You went to an ICE facility with the intention on ambushing ICE officers, ICE agents. That was your intention. And you did that, and you harmed a police officer. So for that, of course, it's got to be attempt murder. It's got to be the first charge. But also, you're talking about terrorism. You're talking about obstructing the federal government. You're talking about all type of stuff, to the point where they should never see the light of day again. And I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion on this whole situation? Do you think that they were inspired by the mainstream media, by a lot of your politicians talking about free Palestine, and ICE agents are they're terrorists and they're trying to round people up, wearing masks, disappearing people? The rhetoric you hear on television 24/7 feeds into this, and it gives them space to feel like they're justified in their actions, which is why I would say hold media accountable, hold the politicals accountable. But of course, if anyone does this, they got to be held accountable first. You can't just say, like, if you try to go to the courtroom talking about, well, you know what, it's not my fault, I didn't really do it, the man on TV told me to do it. It's like, no. We're going to hold them accountable too. Yes, but you, for doing it, you are going to prison for the rest of your life, and you might get something else happen to you, because this can't go on. This can't happen. This is kind of the beginning of a civil unrest type situation. I don't want to say the Civil War word. I don't want to say that. But at the same time, I can recognize some things like that are starting to brew. And the government has a responsibility to nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud right now. Do some kind of big perk walk with these individuals and say, okay, look, you do anything like this, you're going to get automatic 25 years in the penitentiary off the rip. because when you allow it to continue, it tears apart the nation, and you're going to have many more problems than just this one incident in Alvarado, Texas. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.